Welcome to episode 105 of the Left Behind Game Club. This week we play Telltale's Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 1, A New Day. This is the start of a 5-part series that'll take place the first Wednesday of every month for the next 5 months. You can find all things Left Behind Game Club at Left Behind Club on Twitter, at Left Behind Game Club on Instagram, and the link to our Discord can be found at leftbehindgame.club/Discord. Without further ado, we kick off our Walking Dead series right now. Let's get right into it.
You're listening to the Left Behind Game Club.
Welcome to the Left Behind Game Club, our never-ending attempt to make sure that no game is left behind. I'm your host, Jacob McCourt, and today I have 2 friends with me. The first friend, you know him, you love him. His name is Mo Murtati.
Hello, hello.
And our second friend today, first time on the show, Cam Hawkins. He's a staff writer at DualShockers.com. Cam, welcome to the show. Woo!
Welcome.
Thank you.
Cam, thanks so much for coming on the show today. If folks want to find you and your work, where can they find it?
Yeah, you can find my work over at DualShockers, DualShockers.com. I also stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/thecinophile and that's basically me. But I've been featured on IGN, Inside Gaming, Kind of Funny Games Daily, and more coming soon.
Spawn on Me, Player Podcast, many more.
Good.
We are excited to have you to talk here about The Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 1. It's a game developed by Telltale, published by Telltale, RIP Telltale, available
Telltale.
on basically everything, Android, iOS, Kindle, OS X, Linux, Microsoft Windows, Nintendo Switch, Ouya, PS3, PS4, Vita, Xbox 360, Xbox One. Episode 1 was released on April 24th of 2012. Gentlemen, if you had to give your fast pitch on The Walking Dead Season 1, give me your 1-sentence pitch on this game. I will start this time. It is a zombie-filled apocalypse that will punch you in the gut every 30 minutes, guaranteed. Who wants to give their 1-sentence pitch next?
That was a very long sentence. I'll kind of give it a shot. In case someone doesn't know what a Telltale game is, I'll say it's a very interactive zombie story thriller mode. Sorry, comic book thriller, I guess. It's very interactive. We're able to do a little bit of fighting, but not really, and still have a good time. That's also a long sentence.
All about the run-on sentences today. Cam, maybe you can help us avoid the run-on sentences.
Oh, definitely not going to be able to do that, but I would say that The Walking Dead is about a man who protects a young girl in a zombie apocalypse based on Robert Kirkman's comic book series.
What are your personal histories with Telltale games and this game in particular? Because Telltale, although RIP defunct now, they made tons of games, some of which we played on this podcast before. Let's start with Mo.
I think everything I know Telltale, the Left Behind Game Club has kind of showed me the way about. We played the Wolf Among Us, great game. I had a good experience there. Batman, the Telltale series, that one was fun, and I think the trending word for that podcast was jank, because there's a lot of jank situations mechanically with that game, but it's a Telltale game. And then this is the third one, I believe, that we've played, and all I know is it's the same format, but now with the Walking Dead series, the TV show, I guess, which I've seen, I think, 4 seasons of. So that's my background. I know a little bit about the TV. I don't know much about the comic or the source, I guess, for it. So that's kind of, I'm hoping where we can kind of figure that out as we go. That's my background with it.
And before Cam jumps in, tells us about his history, you've never played this game, right?
No, this is my first time going through the Telltale series, The Walking Dead.
Awesome. Cam, that is not the case for you, right?
Oh no, I love this series. I love like Telltale in general. Rest in peace. I've played every Telltale like game from like The Walking Dead forward, except for Guardians of the Galaxy and the second season of Minecraft Story Mode. I played the first season, which was surprisingly really good, and I don't care about Minecraft at all. But I enjoyed the first season. It was pretty solid. But yeah, I never played the second one, and it ended up like getting delisted and everything before I could purchase it and things like that. So I probably will never. Unfortunately, will probably never play that game. And then The Wolf Among Us is in my top 5 favorite games of all time. Even though I really, really love The Walking Dead, and Clementine is like my second favorite character of any medium. The Wolf Among Us is like just one of if not my favorite stories in a video game. It is just absolutely incredible.
It's just fun, yeah.
So I'm incredibly excited for The Wolf Among Us 2. I was like one of the few people on the internet popping off about that when that was announced. And then Tales from the Borderlands. I love the Borderlands franchise, but I'm not as hyped on Tales from the Borderlands as a lot of people are. A lot of people like to say that Tales from the Borderlands is Telltale's best game, and I highly disagree with that. And then I love the Walking Dead series. I've played through every season. The final season, which finished up last year, was my game of the year last year, and beating Kingdom Hearts 3, which I am a major Kingdom Hearts fan, so that speaks volumes. I absolutely love this series, and I can't wait to talk about it with you guys.
Yeah, dope. And about me, so I guess I'd be in the middle of you guys, where I have played a few of the Telltale games, some on the podcast, some not on the podcast, even games like Poker Night at the Inventory, which I thought was like surprisingly fun for what it was. I've played The Walking Dead Season 1, 2, and I think 3, but I did not finish it, something that I will probably do at some point when I finish this series. The Wolf Among Us, great. Batman Telltale, great. I am just really sad that Telltale isn't like a going concern, because there are so many great talents that have gone on to do incredible things in the game industry. Mm-hmm. Both writing, making games. I mean, Shawn and Jake Rodkin have went on to do like phenomenal stuff. Now they're at Valve. They worked on Half-Life Alyx and Firewatch. So again, a game we played on this podcast, a game that's fantastic. So I'm just excited to jump in here and talk about The Walking Dead. My favorite episode is the second episode, but we are here to talk about the first episode, which is called A New Day. Before we get into it, how did you guys play this? I played it on Xbox One thanks to Xbox Game Pass.
I played it on Xbox One.
And I played it on Switch. One of the first games I think I'm playing on Switch for the podcast, so I'm excited for this.
I'm curious, how does it perform on Switch?
I'm glad you asked. Fine, but during like the high intense like music interactive moments, especially like in like final fights, I guess so far, it will freeze up a bit, just like for a split second, like it'll kind of catch up on itself and then continue. So nothing really I care about.
I think that happens kind of across all the platforms. I've experienced that on Xbox as well. One thing I might mention to you, I don't know for certain. I don't think every season of The Walking Dead is on Switch. I would look into that before you continue, because you might have to restart, because the saves go into each season. I'm pretty sure that like the first season, I think the first season and the last season are on Switch, but I don't think 2 and 3 are.
Oh, cool.
So again, like don't take that as the truth, but I think that is the case.
Yeah.
Well, and Telltale's... Go ahead, Mo.
And I was going to say, I think I'd take it probably a season at a time. Like and I wouldn't mind switching it either to another one. I think I only own The Walking Dead Season 1. I believe. And
what was I going to say? Telltale's in a weird spot from a business perspective, because they went under, and I believe they kind of turned out like they're essentially like a holdings company, or they were purchased, and they're not the same Telltale. Essentially, they're just making sure that the IP that they made continue to be sold. So it's, I don't know if to call it a holding company or shell company, but it's not the former Telltale that it was.
No.
And it is tough to, I mean, the Wolf Among Us 2 is coming out, being published by Warner Brothers. But I think the problem was, and we talked about it on a past show that we did about Telltale, but the Telltale Tool, their engine to make their games, was notoriously,
bad.
one, difficult to work with, and then two, did not go on every console. Cam, you say bad. It did not go on every console, like, easily.
Yeah. Yeah, no, one of the lead people at Telltale, like, made that engine or whatever, and he was very adamant about them making all their games with that engine. But yeah, with The Wolf Among Us 2, they're just licensing the IP to Ad Hoc, I believe is the studio. Ad Hoc Studios, which are people who, like some of the lead people that did work on the original Wolf Among Us, which is cool. So I have good faith that The Wolf Among Us 2 is going to be really good.
Yeah, same. And I hope one day we get that Stranger Things game on Unreal that had been promised. But we've talked a lot about Telltale and what they are. Their games they almost, I don't want to say revolutionize the adventure game, but they like really turned the adventure game on their head when this first came out in 2012, in that before adventure games are very point and click, where this is, it kind of is a point and click adventure game, but it has a lot more like dynamic choice and consequence to those choices. Is that a fair way to assess kind of Telltale and Telltale's The Walking Dead?
Yeah, absolutely.
And art style wise, like comic book aesthetic, but maybe a little more, but obviously like 3D models, right?
Yeah, and I was gonna ask that. Like, did you play the original versions of the game, like, or did you play the definitive series that like Skybound did, where they made the art style look more like the actual Walking Dead comic book?
That's a great question. So when I first played it, I played it on PlayStation 3, and I think I played it like as it came out.
Yeah.
So I would have played the original.
Yeah.
But now obviously playing definitive. But it's not something that I looked at and I was like, man, this looks amazing, incredible. Like it ran surprisingly well on Xbox One, but it's not something that like I was blown away by.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to try out the definitive version, but I played it originally on 360, and then the Xbox One versions came out, and I bought those as well. So, I still have like the OG versions, but I definitely want to try playing through all the games with the new updated art style. I just know that when the game originally came out, there was like some criticism, like apparently it wasn't like in super great shape. So I kind of held off on it, but eventually I will definitely look into it.
Before we jump in to talk about the prologue, a tradition on the Left Behind Game Club for Telltale Games is to talk about how you want to play your Lee, and then at the end, on the last episode, we say like, hey, how did you end up, like, did your dream or your thought of how you play Lee end up being the way that you played it? So I'll start and just say that, on the podcast, I've become I've gotten quite the reputation for being a bad man when I play games like this. So I think that the way I'm going to try and play my Lee is I'm going to play him in like an angry dad kind of way, except that I'm basically going to be in it for myself and Clementine, and where if anyone else benefits my cause, then I will take them in and work with them. But otherwise, it's all about me and Clem. How are you guys going to play this?
I'll go next. My thought process is I'm going to be fair, but I'm going to be aware of the circumstances. Like, 1, we're in an apocalypse. We got to survive. 2, you need community to survive. You can't survive on your own. So my whole mission here is to protect Clementine, because she's helpless. She has no one else, and I'm by myself too, so might as well lend my healthy services to help her out, maybe get out of this. But 2, I want to see if I can team up or partner with some group of people so we can survive, because there's no way you can just be out there with a tent and think you're going to be okay for the long term. That's how I'm playing it.
Yeah, so the first time I played it, I was very sympathetic and, tried to... I don't want to say like appease everyone, but just keep the peace at the, in that sense. But this one, this time around, I kind of like want to make all the opposite major decisions. And I'm kind of like thinking more from like an outside perspective than just like playing as Lee, where I'm just like, okay, I've seen this before this way, but what happens if I do it like the opposite way? Because there's certain, like, there might be like certain characters that I like, I never got to see evolve because they were in like one specific part of one episode, and then you have to choose to save one or the other. So that's kind of the approach I'm taking with the game
Cool.
this time around.
But it'll be fun to see if you kind of stick to that perspective as you go through. I mean, you've played it before. I love that in this case, you and I have both played it. Mo is new to it. So I'm just really interested to see how some of the shocks end up affecting Mo. But we start with the prologue, which is kind of the section that sets up the entire episode. You play as Lee in the game, and you start the game in the back of a cop car. The game takes place in Georgia. So essentially, you are being taken to prison by an officer when the madness begins. Did you remember the game starting off with as much of a bang? Or how did you feel about the bang when it happened? And the bang I'm talking about is like when your car crashes.
Yeah, so just to give the context, so when you're in that car, you're being, I guess, escorted by a police officer. It seems like you're under arrest or you're being transferred to jail. I can't remember the specific, but essentially you've been in some kind of trouble and you're stuck in a police car heading somewhere and no one knows about any apocalypse or nothing. This story does a really good way of this game does a thing where they never give you information until you really like have that initial question, like, why is it, what's happening here? That question gets answered, but it's maybe like a scene or two like down the road. So when you're like, oh, why is he being arrested? What's his issue? Like whenever someone asks something like, hey, where were you? Were you with a police officer? You never really know the answer yourself as the player, even though Lee knows it. So, sorry, I lost track of thought. What was the question?
No, the question was, how do you feel about it starting off with a bang? So you've said, hey, car crashes, you don't know what's happening. What did you think was going to happen next, Mo?
I don't know. I feel like this is the escape. This is because you were in that police car and you were being arrested and there was no way out. You're kind of en route. That big bang and it crashing to me was like, okay, this is the opening. Because when you're in that situation in that back seat, it's like, how does someone get out of this? It was a convenient, I guess, out in that situation. That's all I thought. Okay, here we go. The party's about to start. There's a zombie somewhere. And sure enough, it's our friend, the police officer.
Who you have to shoot in the face.
Yeah, pretty much. So the vehicle essentially crashes. You were talking with the police officer initially, and you find out that, hey, he's kind of out dead in front of you. You're coming to your consciousness, and you realize, I think, like, hey, I need to proceed from here. And he turns into a zombie, that police officer, and starts attacking you. That's that wake up call. It didn't surprise me. It was very like stereotypical to me. I felt in that situation. Like the game is called The Walking Dead. There's a guy dead in front of you. Obviously, he's going to stand up and try to attack you in some way. That's what I thought.
I thought it was really. Oh, sorry. I thought it was really interesting that, like, when you're trying to escape from him and you're grabbing the shotgun and then Lee's just like, don't make me do this. He still has like that level of shock where he doesn't realize like this person is a zombie. This person is the dead walking, the Walking Dead. That it's just I just thought that it was a very simplistic but real way to show how Lee, like what Lee is feeling right now.
At this point, that he's kind of an empty canvas that you will fill as the game goes on in this terrible, terrible world that starts in a police car, goes on the road, and then you just kind of walk to a home trying to find out, okay, what do I need to do next? And that's when Lee meets kind of his right-hand woman for the game, Clementine.
This one kind of made me suspicious, man. I was so... Okay, so like you're pulling up to a random house. First of all, you were just involved into like a extremely violent car crash. Like, and you were just in the back seat. It seemed like it was like a car from maybe the 90s. So let's talk about like safety. It definitely didn't exist there.
Ford Crown Vics, baby. Those things are indestructible.
The police officer's like dead, and you like are limping with your legs. But you're like, hey, let's walk up to this house. storm in there. There's blood everywhere. You can see something is going on. It just went from 0 to 100, I guess, really quick. And all of a sudden, the sole survivor is a 10-year-old girl who's like, I figured out I'll just stay in the attic, in my treehouse, have enough food, have enough water, be able to take care of myself. It's very, very like perfect scenario, and I guess that's why we play video games, to like explore these crazy scenarios. Where
this child is going to hand me a hammer so I can defend myself from a zombie that wants to kill me.
Yeah, I almost want to take it from perspective like when the game came out too, because like now we've been all kind of zombies have been in our face for the past like 10 years. It's like it was the hot item of the time. Maybe like before we were like obsessed with all the zombies, like if there was a zombie apocalypse, I'm gonna assume people don't know what to do, but I feel like these shows and these games have trained us in the event that it does occur. Like we're not gonna hesitate, like take out the head, that's how you get rid of the zombie. Like it's kind of like the standard. How do you proceed in this situation? And these guys, they don't know because maybe they haven't been bombarded by all that stuff.
And I guess the one thing that I didn't quite remember is that this game, like, for the first 30 to 45 minutes, is going to make you kill a bunch of zombies in the most brutal way possible. You know, the first time it's a shotgun, and the second time, I believe it is a hammer that you have to, like, hammer into the babysitter's head in a very visceral way.
What was this game rated? Is it like...
this rated is hard M.
Hard M.
Hard M, okay.
Hard
Capital
M.
Okay.
Yeah, hard M.
Yeah, if there was a higher than M, maybe not for adult content, but this would be like M+.
Man, you know, I wonder sometimes with these Telltale games, like if them being an M, I think like takes it away from like the masses and maybe like the younger crowd. Like maybe that's one of the reasons why they're not like selling too much. Like it's too graphic and they can't get that lower rating, and maybe they can't push the SKUs because of it. Like maybe that's where we
this game sold gangbusters.
Yeah,
so like I don't
right.
want to like say it didn't, but this game sold gangbusters.
Yeah, actually,
yeah.
Right, yeah.
One thing I do want to mention that's really cool that I think isn't talked about enough is that this game stars 2 black characters. Because like I'll hopefully admit that like I think it was not until season 3 where I learned, like I knew or recognized that Clementine was black, because based off the art style that they do for her, it's kind of ambiguous in what her race,
I can see that.
Her race is. But then there's like a picture, like the picture of her and her parents. Like if you see it more up close, like she's definitely at the very least part black. And you know, so for me, I never really thought that she was black, and really I thought she was like part Asian, part something else. Because again, like just like how the art style was, like with her eyes and things like that. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's super cool because like
I can't even think of another game.
You can't think of many other games that star a black character, let alone 2. So
especially like the main leads
voiced.
Too.
Voiced by like the legendary Dave Fennoy, who's like got the deepest voice you will ever hear.
Thank you for bringing this up. Who is this person that I feel like has comforted me in so many other games before, and I can't identify it? Who is Lee's voice actor? That's the guy you're referring to?
Yeah, so Dave Fennoy is the voice actor.
What has he done before?
He's done other games. So like he was Lucius Fox in the Batman games.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's actually both the Arkhams and the Telltale games. He plays Lucius in both. And he's basically like the guy who does tons of like additional voices in games. Where I would imagine this is his like biggest role.
Yeah, he's also Bluebird in The Wolf Among Us.
Oh yeah.
He basically has some sort of role in like all of the Telltale games after the success of, the first game. So yeah, he's done a lot of things. I'm looking at his like IMDb page really quick to see if there's anything else that's more iconic. But yeah, he's done. I think he has a role in like every Telltale game.
Yeah, I always remembered him as like you said, being in the Telltale games, but specifically how he got the Lucius Fox role in both the Arkham Batmans and the Telltale Batmans, which was to me, you don't usually see that happen where the same voice actor gets like the same voice for different franchises, but done by different studios. But yeah, Dave Fennoy's great. Like you, Cam, I thought that Clementine was Hispanic because of the graphics.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy to see representation in games because we need more of it, to be honest.
Hell yeah.
After you meet Clementine, she is just adorable and she doesn't know what to do. So immediately your thought is like, hey, come with me. We're either going to go in the day or the night. Do you guys remember if you decided to, go in the day or go in the evening?
Originally I went during the day, but this run I went during at night.
Okay, I want to know what happens at night, because how can you come to the thought process that you should leave somewhere at nighttime? That's what I as soon as I saw that, I'm like, I have to click it because that's an impossible decision. But I'm like, I'm not doing it. It's not worth scary monsters attacking me.
It's funny in this case because if you go during the day, I think you actually end up being in more trouble than if you go at night.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so in the day, you have to, like, help move a car, and then in the evening, I think you just, like, literally pull up and meet Shawn, and then go to Herschel's farm.
Yeah, there's a cop, and then there's Shawn, and then you just, he takes you to the farm. But yeah, and then during the day, it's Shawn and his friends are out there instead. Chet.
Yeah, and...
Yeah. But then, like, at nighttime, Chet is already turned, and he's a zombie.
I think here is kind of the first choice. So the one thing we haven't touched on yet is this game, like, and a lot of Telltale games give you these big choices that have kind of consequences on the rest of your playthrough. So usually in Telltale games, there are 5 of them per episode. Sometimes it's a little more, like sometimes there's 6, or like a choice that has like more than 2 options to it. And the first choice here comes when you get to Herschel's farm, and you're given the option to either lie to Herschel about your background or to tell him about exactly kind of what you're all about. So I will start and tell you that I, for some reason, decided I was going to be honest with Herschel and just not be a liar, just be very like a straight shooter in that respect. So I did not lie to Herschel. Did you guys lie to Herschel?
I didn't say anything to Herschel. I didn't tell him anything about the back, or like his background or anything like that.
I chose the honest option based off of my like little snapshot of my decisions. But I remember there was, I think in this one in particular, I forgot to hit a button in time. So I think it auto chose that option, I think. Because I'm pretty sure one of the first ones.
That's a fair thing to bring up, Mo. Do you want to talk about like the timer and how you have to make your decisions pretty quickly?
Yeah, I don't know. There has to be a thing where in more stressful questions that are like direct, you have to answer now. There's a little countdown clock that goes by pretty quick. And I feel like it's 3 seconds for the high intensity things and maybe 5 for like normal questions. So if you don't click something in time, it'll default to no answer, and that's also an answer, I guess, in the storylines. You could have like not. It could be like you didn't give him any info. You didn't answer the question. You didn't not answer the question. He might think you're a jerk. And you see these little blips at the top left of your screen that kind of indicate how that character perceived your response, whether it was silence or an actual answer.
Clementine will remember, or Lee will remember at the top
that
left
you
of the,
sided
of the
with
screen.
them. Yeah.
And that has like consequences on the remainder of your playthrough. In this one, I don't necessarily think that this decision had much impact on the greater story, but I think that the next decision that you have to make like pretty quickly, it's almost like for the first hour, it's setting up the entire game, it's telling you about the characters, and then very quickly in the last hour, you have to make a series of very important decisions, including what happens between Duck and Shawn.
Yeah, so in my situation, the Duck and Shawn situation, that was because I left during the day and we had like the choice, like, hey, who do you save before we escape, kind of thing. Wasn't that the case?
I'd say like I don't think that choice changes anyway if you leave during the day or at night.
Gotcha. I think I was just confusing the sequences. For some reason, I feel like the Duck and Shawn situation happened right after you were honest, but that's later on once you're with.
Yeah, that's the next day.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and you meet new people at the farm, which is something I failed to mention, is you meet Kenny, you meet Katja, you meet Herschel, who's like central to the Walking Dead fiction, and Kenny and Katja's son, Duck, who is a I would call him like a dopey little 5-year-old boy. Is that kind of a fair assessment? Maybe he's a little older.
I would say he's a little rambunctious.
Yeah,
That's probably how I would describe him.
He's the best way to describe him. He's that rowdy 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid that's always being yelled at by his mom to like get down or don't touch that. He's that kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're coloring on the wall. Stop doing that.
Like comparing like Clementine to Duck just like easily. I mean, Duck definitely seems younger just in general compared to Clementine, but even so, like with that slight age difference, like Clementine is just much more mature than Duck. Like way more mature.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but so what ends up happening is, you are helping Herschel and his son Shawn kind of secure their farm to make sure that zombies don't end up getting in. And as you're doing that, the scene that is set up is essentially just like a tractor. There's a fence. And then, imagine that on your right is Duck, who's sitting on top of the tractor, and then Herschel's son Shawn, who is maybe near the fence. And what happens very quickly is zombies end up approaching because, of course, it is a Walking Dead game. And very quickly, you're given the choice of who are you going to save first. And it's something that, Mo, you said you have to make in a pretty quick decision. Usually it's like 5 to 10 seconds that you have to decide. And I don't know why I made the decision I made, but I decided to save Duck first, which to me, if I'm trying to be like super individually focused, where I'm like, I'm going to do what's best for me, I should have tried to go for Shawn first because he's just muscle that I can use, to further my causes.
Yeah, I kind of see that, Jacob, but I chose Duck for my reason, and it's his dad. So his dad came off as like a very like good like caretaker, loyal, takes care of his like family and his son and all of that. So I felt like he would be a more reliable like ally in like a community we might build versus maybe this kid who has like his dad who's kind of rowdy. And I think I said something like I didn't answer his question directly, like how do you know Clementine? I think I gave him the wrong answer because I didn't know how I knew Clementine. I didn't want to tell him I'm just a random dude who grabbed this kid from their house. So that was like a negative, and they're already suspicious of me, saying, "Oh, you lied to my son." So that's one of the reasons why I picked Duck. I was like, I'm going to get good points with the dad, and we can keep all each other together. Clementine has a friend to play with. These are I'm just trying to build that easy survival future, because this is an apocalypse.
So this choice for me was, the first time, was really hard because... I watched The Walking Dead before I played this, and I already knew who Herschel was, obviously, and things like that. I was like, I liked Herschel as a character. Like, I understood, like, his viewpoint on things and things like that. And so, like, and then Shawn, like, saves you. Like, you don't know where you'd be if it wasn't for Shawn. And then, but I'm just like, but it's a freaking kid. You know what I mean? You got to save the kid. Mm-hmm. It's a kid. So I, originally I saved Duck, but this time I saved Shawn.
Okay. So both Mo and I saved Duck. You saved Shawn. In the Walking Dead, what they do is they give you a percentage meter usually, and I think it's platform agnostic. What I found is that in this decision, I thought it was by platform, but I could be mistaken.
Okay, we can compare.
On my platform, it was 30% chose Duck and 70% chose Shawn.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because that was the thing, was that I found Duck annoying. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, this kid needs to like calm down, and you know, like, there's an apocalypse happening right now. Chill. Be more like Clementine. And but I again, like, he's a kid, like, just come on. So I ended up picking Duck, but like fun fact, regardless of who you pick, Shawn dies.
Oh, darn. I kind of was suspecting that. I'm like, this kid's not just going to die. That's going to be explosive.
No matter what happens, Shawn dies. So for me, I tried to save Shawn, and Herschel came in to try and help as well, I believe. And then he still, you still lose him. And then Kenny saves Duck. And then Kenny gets mad at you for not picking Duck, even though Herschel, he's trying to save someone else. Like, you can save your son. Like, I'm trying to save another person.
True.
That type of situation. And then for me, Herschel basically tells everyone to leave, but he's like thankful for Lee that he at least tried to save him.
Yeah, and the thing I understand about like a Telltale game is that, you know, they can only create so many forks when they're developing the game. You know, forks are finite in that, like, they can't create a fork on a fork on a fork on a fork like infinite times because, like, development resources are finite. But some of these choices, and you'll hear it as we go, give you almost the same outcome, but there are a few choices that fork in a way that give you entirely different choices for an episode or more.
I want to go through those the first couple choices we did, percentages, because mine are completely different from the number you said, and I think they're skewed. Maybe they're just Switch exclusive, because almost all of mine are down the middle, like in the 50s for either question. So I think they're off or something.
Yeah, I think they're based off platform. I don't think it's like a compilation of all the platforms.
Yeah, that would make more sense. So just to give you guys reference, like I honesty lied to Herschel ? So it says you and 54% of players were honest. So that's like a split down the middle. And then the duck one was also a 52% split.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of them were 50-50, and maybe we'll go off of your responses. Maybe they're more accurate.
No, most of them in this case for the Xbox One version at least were 50-50.
Cool.
Except, and that's what developers of the game have said is like, we can write the best story, but we know that we nailed it if we see the stats and we look and we say the choices are 50-50. Like, that to us is that we did our jobs and made like a really tough choice. Duck and Shawn was the only one that was 30%, 70%, but we're very close to you on the other stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
So from there, you end up going to the Everett pharmacy in town, and you end up meeting a series of new characters. Again, meeting another character that is central to the fiction of The Walking Dead, who is Glenn, who is in the show, played by Stephen Yeun, who is fantastic in everything he does. And you meet Lily, Larry, Doug, and Carley as well. Some of these people are bad, and I hate them. Well, I don't know how you guys felt about some of these characters right away.
Did you mention Lily's dad?
Yeah, Lily's dad, Larry. He sucks.
Yeah, Larry sucks. But I'm going to be his best friend in this playthrough.
Oh my goodness. I'm excited that you're doing all these like off choices, because some of them, like, I got to the point where I'm like, no, I'm Lee now. I'm making the decision based off of me, and I'm not going to help this person in a lot of situations. So it's cool to see that.
Yeah, I just think it's fun, you know?
Mm-hmm. Lily is like a gruff leader. Her father is a just terrible racist human being who's like an old dude.
He's basically
Doug.
Oh, sorry. He's basically Chevy Chase from Community, but not satirically. Not satirically.
Yeah, that is such a fair assessment.
Yeah, that's basically Larry.
So how would you describe Doug then?
Here's the thing: I don't know Doug very well until later, because, you know, when we're going to talk about farther down the line, there's a decision between him and another character, and I chose the other character, and spoilers, Doug dies if you don't pick Doug. So, I mean, he just seemed like a very honest, like, stand-up individual, like, very much, like, probably, like, the nicest of, like, every character. Like, he's literally just, like, the nice guy that should get super far just because of how good of a person he seems. You know what I mean? But depending on what you do as Lee, may not work out.
Yeah, I find, like, they do a lot of things where, like, it's the characters writing, like the script in there, they kind of give you that indirect, like, I might be a bad person, I might not be a bad person, and he never gives off any bad signals. He's very like, this guy is ally. So when I ran into him, it was more so like, has no issues right now, so he is friend until I have a reason to not want him to be friend. So that's where I took Doug.
I feel like he's maybe just a little bit like dopey and nerdy, and maybe not as social as some of the other characters, which may hurt him in the end, but like very nice. And I never thought of him that way, because spoilers, in my playthrough I ended up keeping Doug, which in my first playthrough of the game I kept Carley, so I wanted to just check out what Doug was like. And like the whole time I was just being like, oh, Doug, just like, let's go already. Like, that was my feelings toward Doug.
Yeah, Carley, I picked Carley the first time because I felt some sort of like sexual tension between her and Lee. Am I not the only one who felt that? Like the first, like,
Nope.
You didn't feel that?
No, I felt
you
it.
felt
I felt it.
So I was just like, oh, okay, Lee. And then, and I liked Carley as, in general. Like, I felt like she was kind of like, she was a realist. Like, she wasn't, but not in like a rude way. She's just like, hey, we should do this because of this. But like, not the way like Lily and Larry are, where they're just like super selfish and super like aggressive. It's just more like, hey, let's be rational about the situation, and sometimes that did make her come out like sometimes as like a little rude or a little mean, but like I always like knew where she was coming from, which is why I really liked Carley. And I just felt like that she seemed a lot more wise. Like I feel like that, she would in a group in that type of situation, she would be more beneficial to the group than Doug, who's just like seems like a very nice guy that's just trying to survive out here.
Yeah.
Like she would take a more leadership position. So that's why I originally picked Carley, but this time I chose Doug.
Yeah, Doug. Oh, Doug. But before you get faced with that, there's kind of two main locations for the rest of this game, and it's the Everett Pharmacy, which we talked about, and then a motel. So you flip back between the Everett Pharmacy, you go to the motel, you go back to the Everett Pharmacy. And some of the big stuff that happens at the Everett Pharmacy before you go to the motel is you meet the group, you kind of learn a little bit about them. There's a walker that ends up like coming out of a closet inside of the pharmacy and threatens Duck, which again can either cause your relationship with Kenny to get better or worse. And then Lily finds out about the pharmacy owners who, again, if you're listening to this episode or you're listening to the series and you want to play The Walking Dead, what I would suggest is that you kind of hit pause, play the game, come back. We will be here when you're ready. But they find out that the pharmacy owners were actually Lee's parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That one I think was like very like, it puts a little bit of humanity into the character. You're like, oh my goodness, what is this guy thinking right now? He's just back at his family pharmacy. His brain's probably spinning. Like, I grew up here, I walked here when I was a kid, and then like that one scene where you see his brother who's become a walker outside of the pharmacy, and you can kind of see him like, that's really like cool to write in and like do effectively, and I think they did very effectively. Like, yeah,
that was a really rough. I think that was like the first really rough scene in the game where you. There's
a lot, yeah.
I think it's just like more like tragic, I would say, because there is one something that does happen before that is really rough as well, depending on. Not even depending on what choice you make, it's rough regardless. But yeah, it's just really really sad that like just imagine like putting yourself in Lee's shoes. Like I'm an only child, but like I couldn't imagine like having to put down one of your family members, in a situation like that.
Mo, you and I both have brothers. So it would probably be very tough for us to like see my brother's younger, and if I saw him in that, I'd want to die, honestly.
Yeah,
that one would definitely be a little bit be jarring. Like if you saw a sibling in that state, I think that's when the hysteria would begin, because there's like no coming back. So like I kind of, when I saw that, I'm like, I can see him struggling, but it's almost like there's that wild comfort of like once they're like gone, you're like, okay, at least they're at. I don't know. It's such a like very complex situation where like you don't. Of course, I'd be hysterical, but I think I'd be hysterical as soon as you recognize you've lost your loved one, and it'd be them in that walker state, stuck in a position they're gone.
Yeah. The motel stuff is mostly just.
Wait, Jacob,
I forget exactly.
Sorry. Should we tell them that we took like a little break there to like have a group cry and hug, and we're finally over it? the scene of the killing your brother. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm just like, let's go, let's story, and Mo's like, But dude, like, have a heart, bro. Miley does not have a heart. I think the third choice you have to make is around loyalty. I know that I talked a little earlier about like what happens with Duck, but we didn't specifically say, hey, you have to basically side with Kenny, who is someone that you came from Herschel's farm with, or that you decide that I want to make loyalty or increase my loyalty with the new group that I just met, just to kind of get myself closer to them, so maybe I can live a little bit longer in the zombie apocalypse. Did you side with Kenny, or did you side with the new group?
Was this one the punch in the face when I think was it Larry coming out saying like, hey, no, we can't have any more people, there's not enough food, we can't feed everyone, and that's when you choose
Larry's terrible.
Yeah, he's like, do you side with Larry, who's telling, hey, screw everyone else, we just got to protect our own, or do you side with Kenny, who's like, hey, let's help each other, let's build a community? I chose Kenny. I sided with him, and I think we tried to clock Larry, and then he just ate it as like a heavyweight boxer could, and I think knocked everyone out afterwards. So yeah, I sided with Kenny, and I took a nice punch for it.
Yeah, I was very loyal to Kenny on my first playthrough. I really like Kenny, and as we get farther into things, like, you know, I don't want to get into spoilers. Don't want to get into spoilers, but I really like Kenny, and so I did that. But there were the thing with Kenny, and I think Kenny is one of the most interesting characters like throughout the entire series, and I think the reason is because like there are times where you just like are worried about him and like his like thought process and like his not even that, just like his mental state, like across the entire across the entire game, and just like kind of where his head is at. And I think that but I think that like at the end of the day he's always like loyal, like he's always trying to do what is best for the people he cares about and things like that. But during this playthrough, I sided with the new group.
Okay. That must be really interesting, given how much of a like piece of garbage Larry is. Like, that must be really tough to just say like, I know you're a piece of trash, but I want to side with you. I sided with Kenny because, like you said, he's loyal. He makes questionable decisions, but he will always be loyal. Mm-hmm. Is that tough to like have to like get close to a character who is actually vile and terrible?
To a certain degree, it's more or less like from my like the way I'm playing it, it was just to kind of see what happens. But from a more just like, you know, why that choice could make sense to me is just like not trying to. You're not trying to like, you know, you already know that Kenny's like with you, you know what I mean? But you need to put your trust into these other people, just like they need to put their trust in you. Like, if I'm in a zombie apocalypse, you know, and I meet people that I don't know, like, you have no idea what they're gonna do. Like, you don't know if they're going to try and be aggressive towards you. You don't know if they're gonna try and trick you. Like, it is you know, when there's no order, you should just like expect the worst. Like, that's how I would approach it in a zombie apocalypse, until you could like prove that you're not going to kill me in my sleep or anything like that. That's kind of like how I feel if I was in that position. But then like in another viewpoint, it's just like, hey, like I feel like if they would have done something to us, they would have done something already by now, and they haven't.
Right.
So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's try and figure things out. And if we can get more people to join us, we got more people on our side, which will make us survive longer.
Fair. Terrible people. The one thing I don't have in my notes is the part of the game where you have to make it to the motel. I don't exactly remember why you had to make it to the hotel. Or the motel. Do you guys remember why, like, you decide to leave the motel to the pharmacy?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Cam, but I'm pretty sure the situation was Glenn said he was going out to get supplies, and he said he heard that there was someone stuck at the motel, and we have to go back and save them. And that's, I think, what sparks that argument. Like, we have to go save them. It's like, no, we can't feed any more people. And then it's like, oh no, we do have to bring him back. We have to save this person. And that's why you go to the motel, to hopefully clear the zombies that are there and bring back this person who's stuck there, like at the motel, which has electricity and all that fun stuff too.
And the motel is interesting because it is kind of the first time where you have to like get into a more like action-packed like stealth sequence, because you have to flip back and forth between like different cover points, which I don't necessarily think is like the most well executed, or like it's a different style of gameplay, but obviously it's not like the most fun you'll have in The Walking Dead. But you move between different cover points in order to take out all the zombies that are around and get into a motel room where you know someone is hiding. So you go through all that, you make it to the motel room, and you discover that in the motel room, after you get your axe, there is a woman inside of the motel room who immediately starts being like, I can't believe, like the whole time she's like, please don't come in here. And you just ignore her and end up breaking her out of there.
My favorite line in the game so far, in this episode, was when you finally break her out of the room or whatever. I think she mentions something like, my boyfriend died, like he got shot, and I think Glenn pops his head up and goes, oh wait, you have a boyfriend? And I was like, did we just get driven all the way out here because homeboy wanted to like date this person? Like, what's going on?
He's trying to get to second base, like.
Yeah, literally, he's like, wait, you have a boyfriend? Like, wrong place, man. Like, that was the funniest thing. This whole ordeal was pretty much, I felt, because Glenn wanted us to bring back a girlfriend for him.
The character, from my memory, is someone that seems to be kind of religious. And so, from memory, I remember them objecting to, and correct me if I'm way off base here, but they don't want to live anymore in this zombie apocalypse. And kind of one of your big choices then is like, okay, so what am I going to allow this woman to do? So am I allow this woman to do? Am I going to give her a gun to kill herself, or am I not going to do that?
Yeah. So more specifically, she's been bitten. She's been bitten, and she's just like, hey, put me out of my misery. Like, I don't want to turn into one of those things. And you basically decide whether or not to give her Carley's gun or not. And yeah.
So what did you guys do? Did you guys give her the gun, or did you refuse to give her the gun?
I can't remember my thought process why I did this, but I did not give her the gun. I think because of the fact that I thought like she's dead already. Like what are we doing here? Like she's already lost. And I think
savage.
Just because my result is saying that I refused it, but this might have been the one where I didn't answer in time. So that might have been the reason why I refused it, because I can't see myself choosing that option. Like, she's suffering.
Yeah, and see, I was a savage because I wanted to conserve ammo, and I'm like, no, like, you're already gone. I'm being a savage person in this playthrough. I'm being the big bad wolf of this game, so I'm like, I'm going to conserve my ammo. It's for me. You can just go ahead and turn.
It's a waste of a bullet.
If it kept track of ammo, I understand that, but I think you're being senile here, because I don't think we're ammo hunting anywhere for the game. But I get it. It's more so like this is the moral path you've chosen, so you're going to be treading along that path.
Yeah, I'm not a terrible person, I swear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so first I want to preface that I would never give someone a gun for them to kill themselves in any scenario. That being said, I gave her the gun. I gave her the gun because originally I did not give her the gun. I wanted to see what happened if I gave her the gun, and because this is fiction, not real life. I would never in real life give someone a gun to kill themselves. That's no joke. And so so basically for me, she. You convince Carley to give her the gun, because at first Carley's just like, no, like, are you crazy? And then you convince her to give her the gun, and then basically they were going to leave, like, we can't watch this woman kill herself. And then Lee says that we need to stay because someone needs to grab the gun. So Lee tells Carley and Glenn to leave so they don't have to watch her shoot herself, and you watch her shoot herself. It's tough.
Yep.
I just remembered from your explanation there, Cam, why I refused to give her the gun. So I did choose that. I definitely for sure refused to, because in no way, shape, or form in a survival apocalypse situation am I giving a firearm to anyone outside of like my party that I trust securely. She could have easily grabbed it, shot us both, and then game over kind of situation. Why are you extending that level of like capability to someone you don't know? Like, we're not in a movie right now where if this was a survival situation, you're not giving that to anyone, no matter what.
And here's the thing that's really interesting about this interaction, regardless of what choice you pick. Both are equally rough. Like, both are equally sad. Because, you know, if you don't give her the gun, she tackles you guys over the stairway ledge
and dies,
and then she grabs the gun and still shoots herself. And then like Lee's just like yelling no, like don't shoot yourself, like that type of thing. And it feels like, shout out to Dave Fenoy, it felt so real in that one specific moment, more than a lot of others, where I was just like, Jesus, like that's terrible. So
just on the Dave Fenoy point, I found at many points through this game, although he has like the deepest voice you'll ever hear, I found like there was a lot of texture to his voice, and you could easily tell when he was, you know, sad, apprehensive, like whatever the feeling was, you could hear it even if you weren't watching the screen. That's just how good his voice was.
There's voice acting that just like is, you see why they're doing it, and there's voice acting where they just fill the role. This guy, like it's emotional. You can tell he's putting emotion in the words. Like some people just read scripts. He's like performing the script.
Mo is a little more practical, whereas some of us had different interpretations. We talked about Lee's brother. We talked about the pharmacy. So I guess what I want to do is kind of just push us to the final sequence here in the first episode. There's a lot that happens in this first episode, but in this first episode, you have to end up finding keys to a pharmacy office to help out the father, to help Larry out and get some medication. But when that happens, you allow a bunch of walkers that are outside the pharmacy. So you've gone pharmacy, back to the motel, back to the pharmacy. You've allowed a bunch of walkers into the pharmacy itself, and that is when you are faced with the biggest decision of the entire game that forks the story for you in a major way for future episodes. Let's imagine all the walkers are crashing in on the pharmacy, and two of your characters, Carley and Doug, as we mentioned before, are taken by walkers at the same time. And much like the first sequence in this game where you have to choose between Duck and Shawn, you again have to choose, am I going to help Doug first or am I going to help Carley first?
In this decision, I want to give a little bit of context onto Carley, because in my playthrough, she actually catches you in like the pharmacy's office looking at a family photo, and she tells you like, hey, I know who you are. And it's the first instance where they kind of explain Lee's backstory and why he was arrested, like who he is, blah blah blah. So she tells him, hey, I know you're the son of the pharmacist. I know you got in jail or whatever for killing a senator, I believe, because he was sleeping with your wife. So you're a professor at some major university, and she's a news reporter who like covered the story, and that's why she knows everything. And if beforehand she tells you like, hey, can I trust you? I'm not going to tell anyone, but like this is going to be between me and you. So it sets up that situation that Carley is the only person that knows probably the most sensitive situation about you, that you were essentially like a felon on the run and no one knows about it and you haven't told anyone, so it's very suspicious. But she's extending that olive branch like, hey, we're in a post-apocalyptic situation. I'll be on your side. So my decision, do I save Carley or Doug? My thought process was, if I save Carley, she has the firearm, I believe, but also I was scared that she wasn't gonna die in this situation, and that she's gonna be like, "Oh, you tried to kill me because I had that information, and now I lost an ally who could have been really helpful." So that's pretty much the reason I put together to save her versus Doug, because I figured we've got a lot of Dougs.
That's a very interesting way to go about it, and I personally didn't really think about it. For me, I was just more again, like I felt like there was a relationship between Carley and Lee developing, while like Doug was just kind of doing his thing like keeping watch, and like that was basically it. But that's actually really interesting that you mentioned that, and I think that's like kind of a really, I think especially now is like a relatively controversial way to look at people. Is that like, you know, a lot of people like, oh, this person did this one bad thing, like, you know, granted normally it is really bad, and then they're just like, this person as a whole is like terrible. Mm-hmm. and then there's like this situation. Well, granted it is like literally to not die and survive, and you have to you just have to place trust in people in that sense. Like, she's just like, you know, I know you did all this stuff, but I don't care about that right now. I want to survive. Can I trust you? Like, that's just like how it is. And I think that is a really, I don't know, I think it's just really interesting to me that you know, if I was in that situation, you know, and I knew that this person killed someone, like, you know, if I, like, granted she had more details, I was like, oh, like, Lee killed this person because he slept with his wife, like, that seems like a more like one and done murder, you know, like, he's not like going to be like a serial killer. But still, it's still just like, you did commit murder. you did murder somebody, or at least you were accused of, alleged, and you know, sentenced to jail for murder. So it's I don't know. I didn't really think about that until you brought it up. So that's an interesting way to look at things.
Yeah, no, I think I also gave the credit that if she was a news reporter and she was investigating it, she might have a good picture of like this guy's character, because she might have seen every single, like, the story from like accusation to the evidence presented to the conviction to all of that, and she still was able to extend that olive branch. Like you said, if it was survival, you'd be so nervous to have a murderer in your community. So her dismissal and like saying, I'll keep this like between us as long as we're cool, like we have to survive, that was also that thing where it's like, okay, this might be an ally, who knows. But yeah, how did you guys decide, and who did you decide between?
So I just wanted to quickly say that, you know, Lee killed a state senator for having an affair with his wife. He is a like college professor, so I can't imagine what it's like in a small town like Macon, Georgia. I actually don't know how big Macon, Georgia is, but I'm assuming it's like a small-ish town. I've worked in small town radio, and I can tell you that like when a story takes hold in a community, there's 153,000 people in Macon. So like when there's a story that is the big story, like everyone knows it, every detail. So I can't imagine what it's like to like go home, even in an apocalypse, and not be in jail and just worry that the whole time that you're going to be discovered. My decision was very easy. It was like, I haven't played the Doug route, so I am just going to see what Doug's all about. I'm a terrible human being, so the whole time where I was playing Doug, I was like, oh, dopey Doug. Like, every time he was doing a thing, I just, like, thought of him as, like, a very dopey person. So in my playthrough of Season 1, even, like, after I made the decision, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to regret this decision not to keep Doug, but here we are. We're going to keep going with it. So I chose Doug, but it was strictly I hadn't seen the Doug route yet. Cam, you chose Doug too, right? So yeah, we got two Dougs and a Carley. Yeah,
again, I chose Doug specifically to see, because he's the one character I can think of off the top of my head right now in Season 1 that I just still know nothing about, and I want to see what he's all about.
Sorry if this is a silly question. So does this mean my whole story has no Doug and yours has no Carley, and they're filling in the role pretty much in their own way?
We don't know. I don't even know. Like, I really don't know what happens to Doug at all, like, throughout the season.
Gotcha.
So that's going to be like,
tune in to find out.
That's going to be a fresh experience for me.
Cool.
Yeah, I know that, like, our endings, and again, spoilers for, like, mild spoilers for Walking Dead Season 1, but, like, we kind of end in a similar place. But imagine, like, a diamond where, like, as we go through the playthrough, more choices will kind of emerge, and then as you get closer to the end of the game, like your choices kind of converge. But imagine that like they aren't going to make 2 entirely different episodes, but like in some instances, unique situations will happen because you chose Doug over Carley. And in this instance, on the Xbox One version at least, it was 51% Doug, 49% Carley, which I don't believe, because I think when I first played it, like you, Cam, I was like, man, these 2 characters, they got some sexual tension going on. Maybe we should keep them together. And that is kind of where the story ends. As you kind of escape the pharmacy, you end up going to the motel, which is where the episode kind of ends. You lost some characters along the way. Stephen Yeun's character's name is Glenn. Glenn ends up leaving and kind of leaving you to your own devices, and from there, it just kind of gives you the screen where it says coming up soon on the next episode of The Walking Dead, and that's kind of where it ends.
Basically, they're planning on they kind of tease it during the thing for the next episode, but basically they set up shop there. They end up like securing the motel, and that's kind of like their base of operations going into episode 2.
The one thing, Jacob, that they actually do to like end the scene is like, so you make it to the motel and it's all lit up, it has electricity, and they're like, okay, it's good, we're here, we're safe, at least we have running electricity, we have running water, we have beds to sleep in, and all of a sudden all the power goes out and shuts down, and that's like the holy crap, they're now in a motel with nothing. So they've just moved to a new location that they know nothing about, and now tune into next episode. Like,
these characters just keep continuously getting like the worst end of the stick, but I feel like that's Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead, where doesn't matter what you do, you're always screwed. And that is the end of the episode. Did y'all have any final thoughts about episode 1? I will quickly give you mine. A heck of a way to start a game, although playing it for the second time, it wasn't as bombastic. I'm sure if I were to play this again for the first time, I would be surprised at many of the turns.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just excited to kind of get into the further episodes, at the next episodes as we go.
One thing I do want to mention before we head out, just because you're saying that, is that I had my fiance Celia, she's like not a huge gamer, but she does like to game, and I told her like I want to name our, like, if we have a daughter, I want to name her Clementine. Like, that's how much I love Clementine as a character.
Whoa,
and
wow, cool.
And I also just think like what that name means to me based off that character as well. I also think it's just a beautiful name. And I told her like, that, hey, I want to like name my my first daughter Clementine if we have a daughter. And then she said, why? And I basically was just like, you just need to play The Walking Dead. And I just like, and then she ended up playing through the entire, like all 4 seasons. And even after the first season, she was just like, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And yeah, so she's, we've played through, she played through all the seasons for the first time last year. And she just absolutely loved it. Like we dressed up as like Lee and Clementine for Halloween last year. Like she was like the more like, no, not going into spoilers. But yeah, so we cosplayed as them for Halloween, which was fun. And she has Clementine's hat, and like we've bought like the Walking Dead like vinyl and all that stuff. Like we kind of like that's like a kind of a big connection to our relationship and stuff like that. So it's cool.
Mo, what are your final thoughts?
I think it was a great start. Like, it's a great start to another Telltale game. Like, I've played these games before, so I kind of know what I'm getting into. The voice acting is keeping me interested and keeping me engaged. I'm really into it. I'm really hoping I don't get burnt out by the constant like zombie thing, but I think the story and the acting is what's going to keep me into this thing.
That is our first episode in the Telltale Walking Dead Season 1 series. Keep it locked to the Left Behind Game Club feed, where for the next 4 months after this, we will be giving you 1 episode of this series per month, the first Wednesday of the month. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, you can check out all things Left Behind Game Club at leftbehindgame.club, on Instagram at leftbehindgameclub, and on our website at leftbehindgame.club. If you want to hang out with folks that love to talk about video games, there's a place you can do that, and that is in the Discord for the Left Behind Game Club. Mo, where can people find the link to that?
The best way is to jump on our website that Jacob just mentioned, leftbehindgame.club or leftbehindgameclub.com. We have a Discord link that will redirect you directly to the server where you can join and kind of join the discussion. If you notice, we didn't cover every single thing that was in episode 1, so a lot of it will probably continue on in that forum. So feel free to jump in and get some game deals. There's game keys being circulated now, thanks to one of our members, Manglewort. Shout out Manglewort. So we'd love to have more members, and we're looking to chat with you today, tomorrow, and in the future.
Cam, again, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We loved having you. If folks want to find your work on the internet, where can they do that?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at the Cinephile Guy, and twitch.tv/the Cinephile Guy. Excuse me. And I write for DualShockers.com, and you can follow DualShockers on Twitter at DualShockers.
And if folks want to see what you play on Twitch, what do you typically play?
I play like a wide variety of games, as a chill stream, just me I use it as a way for me to normally play games that I normally kind of kick to the curb, that the backlog, or games that I always tell myself I need to play these, but then I don't. So this is kind of my excuse to actually do them. But right now I'm replaying through Kingdom Hearts 2, which is my favorite game of all time. I'm just playing it I'm basically playing it the hardest way possible. Right now, just for fun, because I've been wanting to play Kingdom Hearts 2 again for a minute. So, but for the month of October, even though this is coming out later, but right now, I'm gonna be streaming through all of the Left 4 Dead campaigns. I'm gonna play through all the Left 4 Dead campaigns with some friends during the month of October for Halloween and stuff like that. Because that last stand update came out a week ago or something like that, and we played a little bit of that, and I immediately was just oh man, I want to play through this entire game again.
Mo, if people want to find you on the internet, where can they do so?
You can find me at Murtadi on most social media platforms. I'm also streaming on Twitch at Shannon the Dragon. But mostly in that Discord server. That's where I kind of keep the most active to chat with our members. You
can find me on the internet at Jacob McCord on all major social media platforms. I'm on Twitter. That's where I do a lot of tweeting. I'm on TikTok making Pokemon card content. I make occasional YouTube video essays at youtube.com/Jacob McCord. And I have another podcast called Cutscenes, a video game movie podcast where we dissect video game movies. Season 1 just wrapped up, but we are planning Season 2 for 2021. So make sure to check that out at cutscenes.ca. Mo, Michael's not here, so you have to close it for us. What do we say to him?
And that, my friends, is one last episode left behind. Did I say that right?
You did. You nailed it.
Okay.
We've made difficult decisions.
And there are still more ahead of us.
2 people aren't enough to save the galaxy.
We need the toughest,
smartest,
deadliest allies.
We need you.
We need you to join us.
And listen to Reignite,
a certain point of view podcast about storytelling,
love,
and Mass Effect.
Join us every other Thursday as we fight for the fate of an entire galaxy.
You can find us everywhere you get your podcasts.
Or at certainpov.com/reignite.
We're counting on you.
We should go.